The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Coram, Court, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hill,
Excused.
Heisey, Hobart, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen, Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd, Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, and 1 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Rankin, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members and guests, would you join together in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
Approval of the journal. Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Thursday, February 21, 2019 be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Change in committee assignments. The following change in committee assignments will occur. Yesterday, the appointment of Gregory L. Moore to the State Historic Society Board of Directors was assigned to the Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, but it will be reassigned to the Committee on Local Government instead. Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 145, 146, 147, 148, 149, 150, 151, 152, 153, 154, 155, 156, 157, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 165, and 166 correctly re-engrossed. Senate Bill 4176, correctly re-revised. House Bill 1071 and 1082 correctly enrolled. Senate Bill 39 and 42.
Committee reports.
February 21st, 2019, Community Education, Africa Service, and Marriage Committee following. Senate Bill 97, be amended as follows. As amended, refer committee to hold a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2019, Community Education, Africa Service, and Marriage Committee following. House Bill 1059, be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. February 21st, 2019, Community Education, Africa Service, and Marriage Committee following. House Bill 1100, be referred to committee to hold a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar.
General orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Moreno will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the titles to all the bills on the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1012 by Representative Beckman and Valdez A. and Senator Fields concerning the flexibility of the Department of Personnel to administer the payment of controlled maintenance projects from the proceeds of lease purchase agreements executed pursuant to Senate Bill 17267. House Bill 1020 by Representative Roberts and Beckman and Senators Fields and Story concerning clarification of certain administrative matters of the Capital Development Committee.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1012 and House Bill 1020.
You've heard the motion. The motion before the body is to adopt all the bills on the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The bills are adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee holds the reports out in consideration of the following tax bills being second reading. The makes the following recommendation on House Bill 1012, House Bill 1020 passed second reading over revised place calendar for the reading and final passage.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. House Bill 1012, House Bill 1020 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading bills, and Senator Moreno will take the chair.
I'm gonna make you cry. It'll be so moving.
The committee will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 90?
Senate Bill 90 by Senator Scott and Representative Gray concerning the operation of peer-to-peer motor vehicle sharing businesses.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 90 lay over until Monday, February 25th, 2019.
The motion before the body is to lay over Senate Bill 90 to Monday, February 25th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? The bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of House Bill 1033.
House Bill 1033 by Representatives Tipper and Kennedy and Senators Fields and Priola concerning a local government's authority to regulate products containing nicotine.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1033. There are no committee reports.
To the bill, Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, House Bill 1033 had no amendments in committee, so there's no committee report. But what I want to talk to you about is this bill and how it restores Tabor rights to local communities to regulate as they see fit, to also mirror what local communities vis-a-vis the state have as far as authority with alcohol and marijuana in this state. We're simply aligning a couple of areas for tobacco. I'm going to use the term OTP probably frequently in this debate. That stands for other tobacco products. Those are things such as chew. Vapes have become a major seller, especially in the youth of our community. Unfortunately, I have firsthand knowledge of that, having teenage kids. They do not currently fall under the regulatory regime that was put in place 40 years ago to punish locals in even having the ability to ask or trying to ask voters on licensing and or fees to regulate, fees to have compliance checks, so on and so forth. So with that, I would ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1033.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, the reason this bill is so very important because right now in the state of Colorado, our teens are at a critical rate of using tobacco. Right now, Colorado kids are at the average rate of 33% for using nicotine products. One of the things that they like to use are what we call e-cigarettes and vaping. And they believe that these e-cigarettes and this vaping is harmless. But it's harmful, it's not harmless. The vaping, they think that they're inhaling water, and it's not water. They are inhaling and they are ingesting nicotine products. The e-cigarette holds about 200 puffs of nicotine. That equates to 1 pack of cigarettes. What's happening is our young people are getting addicted to nicotine at a very early age. And if they can get addicted at middle school and at high school, then they become adult smokers. And they transition from e-cigarettes, from vaping, to real cigarettes. Now, I grew up in the 70s, and my community was heavily marketed with nicotine and cigarette products. There were billboards all over my community where they were encouraging young people and adults to smoke. With this bill, we have an opportunity to reverse the trend of the use of nicotine products for our kids. And this is one way we're able to kind of change that trend to avoid them from ever assuming and consuming nicotine products. We all know what the causes are when we smoke. And young kids may not think that it's harmful. But we know that when you smoke nicotine, tar can build up on your gums, tar can build up on the surface of your teeth. It can cause your teeth to rot and fall out. Later in life, your skin can become wrinkled, and you can ultimately get cancer from smoking cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or from vaping. So I'm urging your support on this House Bill 1033 so that we can reverse the trend as it relates to teens getting access to these nicotine products. Thank you.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L005?
Amendment L005, House Bill 1033 by Senator Bridges, amend Maria Gross Bill, page 5, strike lines 1 through 7, and substitute to the State Treasurer in order to qualify.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amendment L005 simply says that if a local
Senator
government...
Bridges, will you please move Amendment
All right.
L005?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L005.
To the amendment, Senator Bridges.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. L005 simply says that any municipality or county that actually raises taxes on cigarettes will lose their share back from the state. It's a form of double dipping. This is just, I think, putting this in line with our values on how it is that we tax and share money back.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank Senator Bridges for working with us on this. Having served in the House, I remember reading bills and amendments that came from the Senate, and I was like, oh, that's very interesting. That is very intelligent. So I think this amendment actually marginally improves the bill. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm urging a no vote on this amendment. And the reason I'm asking for a no vote on this amendment, why should we penalize our counties? Right now, they're eligible for 27% share distribution on tobacco, and what this amendment does is says that you forfeit that. We represent the state of Colorado, and not all counties are funded equally, and to ask the county to forfeit that share back is reckless, is what I'm thinking. It's harmful. Counties use their funds for a variety of different things. One of them is for ambulatory services. Our counties are not adequately funded, and what this amendment will do, it will say that your counties will not be eligible for the 27% share back that the state already provides counties across the state. And I have a chart just to let you know what these counties would be forfeiting. They're only going to be forfeiting this if they decide to tax nicotine products. But I do have a chart. I just want to read some of them quickly. Weld County, their distribution for the year 2016 was $247,000. Arapahoe County, $105,000. Douglas County, $234,000. Aurora, $634,000. Boulder, $328,000. Broomfield, $159,000. Castle Rock, $108,000. These are real dollars. Colorado Springs, $1 million. Denver, $2 million. Inglewood, $187,000. So Fort Collins, $352,000. So you're putting these counties at risk in reference to those funds not being available. So I urge a no vote on that amendment.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L005? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Amendment L005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Amendment L005 is adopted. There is another amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Amendment L009?
Amendment L009, House Bill 1033 by
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L009.
To the amendment, Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the senator's comments earlier about the crisis we have in this state on vaping. This is absolutely correct. We have more teenagers in this state illegally vaping than any other state in the United States. This is a crisis. And this is a statewide crisis. This is not a county-by-county crisis. And the bill as written gives counties the ability to raise the age across the state to 21. But this is a statewide crisis. And if we want to address a statewide crisis, we need a statewide solution. This amendment raises the age across the state to 21 rather than letting students at Arapahoe High School, where I went to school, drive 1.5 miles south, cross county line into Dougco, and buy whatever it is they want to buy. This amendment says 21 is the law of the land in the state of Colorado. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to request a title ruling on this amendment L009.
Committee will observe a senatorial 5. On Amendment L009, the chair rules that it does not fit under the title. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1033? There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L011?
Amendment L011, House Bill 1033 by Senator Cook.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L011.
To the amendment, Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, what this says, if a local government, what it can't do is limit competition. So you cannot limit the competition based on different products. You can't ban any flavor of cigarette, like a certain flavor. You can't require certain distances, setbacks between realtors or between property, and it requires that the realtor that sells cigarette, tobacco products, and nicotine products obtain a license for each product, or I'm sorry, not for each product, but one license for all the products. And it also says that any money used from licensing has to go towards enforcement and can't be used for any other purpose. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I encourage a no vote on this amendment L011. I'm wondering if it even fits under the bill title, so I guess I would like to request a ruling.
The Senate will observe a senatorial 5. On Amendment L011, the chair rules that it does fit under the title. Senator Priola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the good senator from Weld County, I appreciate you bringing this. I have committed to working on this very issue in another piece of legislation. Reading through it, though, it does kind of remind me of a lot of the regulation on marijuana we have in this state. And again, this bill 1033 aligns in a number of ways. It aligns traditional cigarettes where OTP, other tobacco products, think vapes, chews, are currently treated and not punished. It also aligns the treatment of home rule cities and counties, where counties are now froze out from having a seat at the table. And it removes the prohibition against locals exercising their Tabor rights. So to not muddy the waters on this bill, I would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L011? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Amendment L011. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Amendment L011 is lost. Further discussion on House Bill 1033. Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We heard this bill in committee, and I was a no vote on it, and the reason is I think we need to stop and take a breath on what we're doing here. We're allowing each individual county to set up their own rules. So you could have the potential of 64 different county rules and a checkerboard that would not be really a benefit to anybody. I've heard a lot from businesses in the area that indicate if one county does promote the rules for this, then they will shop in a neighboring county who does not. So I think that this is, this has always been regulated by the state as a whole, and I think that in this particular case, that's the best way to proceed in this. So I would urge a no vote on this bill. Thank you.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the good senator from Southeast Colorado. Locals can already do a portion of this, the OTP that I had mentioned, which is increasingly the majority of the sales regarding nicotine. Think your vapes, think chewing tobacco, so on and so forth. And as a parent, I've been educated the last few years, and I really want the folks listening at home to keep this in mind if you have teenagers or kids that are about to become teenagers. Just because your child is vaping does not mean they are vaping nicotine. They are able to vape things with THC in them that smell like grape or other fruits, and they might try to get you to accept that they are vaping nicotine, but they are not vaping nicotine. Please, as a parent, be on guard, do your due diligence, and try to protect our kids from ingesting THC below the legal age. Because all the research says their brains are developing and it has long-lasting effects long after their teenage years.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you. I understand the thing about the vaping. But right now what we have is that we have actually laws on the books that says no one under 18 can purchase. We cannot seem to enforce this law, so now we're going to add another law that we still cannot enforce. I've heard from several county commissioners that said that's the biggest problem with this. They cannot enforce it. So are we just going to keep adding laws that are unenforceable? Or are we going to try and start educating people, which we've done a tremendously good job on against this? But I still think that this is not the direction we should be going as a body. That 64 county checkerboard does concern me, and it should concern you. Thank you.
Senator Fields.
Members, we have a choice today. And right now, we need to be choosing and standing on the sidelines with our kids. I mentioned earlier that we have an alarming rate of teens in our state that are smoking. They're smoking higher than the national average at 33%. Many of our teens are getting access to nicotine products in middle school. And you heard the senator talk about this patchwork that exists. Well, this patchwork exists in our marijuana laws as it relates to taxing. The tax is different than it is in Aurora and Denver or Aspen or whatever. So we already have that disparity or differences as it relates in taxation. Also, already in the state of Colorado, we have 3 communities that have already elected to increase the taxation on nicotine products. That's the city of Aspen and the city of Avon. So it's already happening, and they can do this as of 2017. So this law already exists, but what we were trying to do is to try to protect any penalties that would be associated if they decided to increase the taxation. As you know, with that amendment that was pulled from the bill, we have to do something. As lawmakers, when we see that there's this trend going on with our teenagers smoking, we have to do something. If we don't do something now, then when? Do we wait for them to get cancer? Do we wait for them to have other complications that go along with nicotine products? We do know that one way to curb the trend is when you increase the cost of tobacco and nicotine products, it makes it harder for teens to buy it because most of them are price sensitive. We heard the senator talk a little bit about enforcement. Well, the way we enforce right now, we don't have enough people who are out there enforcing this regulation. We had testimony in committee indicating on an average, a convenience store might get audited twice a year. We had a young person come in and they told us that it's easy for teenagers to get access to nicotine products. They get it from older kids, or they know somebody in the store that won't really check their IDs. They talk about how easy it is to get access to tobacco. But yet we heard from the industry that they have a high rate of compliance, like 98%. Well, of course you would have that kind of compliance rate, 98%, especially if someone's only checking your convenience store twice a year. And we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stores that are selling these products, gas stations, 7-Eleven, grocery stores. And these teens say they know what clerk to go to get access to these products. So yes, we do need to have more enforcement, but that would be a different bill. That would be a bill that we would have to have some funds tied to increasing those who go around and enforce this legal process. So members, this is doing the right thing. I know who we're serving. We're serving the people of Colorado. We're serving our kids, and we're trying to protect them from getting addicted to nicotine products. Once again, I ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1033.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to add to what the good senator from Aurora said, you know, there's already the checks and balances of state and local with regards to marijuana in the state, with regards to alcohol in the state. But with regards to nicotine and vaping, which, as I mentioned earlier, there's a stronger nexus now with THC, there is a very thin, not very well funded regulatory regime only at the state level. And this bill was ran in prior years, and one part of the testimony I really remember from one of those hearings is the state doesn't even know exactly who's selling a lot of these tobacco and nicotine products because there's not enough money to enforce. The good senator from Aurora mentioned twice a year. I believe the actual statistics is once every 2 years, on average, they're able to get around and do a check. And if they fail the check, they're probably not going to get back in the time that the grace period expires. So members, this is a step in the right direction for our kids, for the youth of Colorado. It's not an undue burden. It restores Tabor rights to local governments. It instills the checks and balances that we have in other areas of marijuana and alcohol. And I even brought up in committee when I was in the greenhouse business, we used to have the checks and balances of the state would come in and inspect our greenhouse, and the feds would come in and inspect our greenhouse. And when I was a little kid, I thought they were just there to help us grow better crops. When I got older and more sophisticated, I realized they were there to make sure we weren't growing the wrong stuff, if you know what I mean. But there was that check and balance of two different branches of government making sure we were doing right by the community and doing right for the citizens of Colorado. Members, I ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1033.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition of this bill and ask for a no vote. This is not a step in the right direction. This is a step backwards. This is more regulation on private business, more regulation by the government, more interference by the government. The counties, cities now will be able to restrict competition between stores. They can say, you know what, you're already selling cigarettes at this one store, so you can't sell it over here. They can ban certain products on businesses. They can regulate people out of business. They can say, well, all right, we're going to raise our fees so high, and we're going to make you get multiple licenses for tobacco products, or like cigarettes, or non-cigarette products, vaping products, and regulate them out of business. That's not what this country's about. We're not about regulating people out of business. We're supposed to promote business and help businesses. One thing I heard also the good senator from Aurora say that, well, let's tax it, and then people will cut down on it. Well, that's not true. I heard recently that over 70% of the cigarettes consumed in New York are brought in from out of state because their taxes are so high on cigarettes. People are going to go other places to find their cigarettes. If one county or one city is charging a lot more in taxes and fees, someone's going to go to another county or city. You know, one thing that amazes me down here is that we try to vilify and criminalize tobacco, which is a legal product here, but we try to criminalize it, but yet we glorify marijuana, and we encourage people to smoke dope. So this bill is, like I said, a step in the wrong direction, and we need to just kill it now.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the fine senator from Weld County for his comments. But members, this is not going in the wrong direction. The senator mentioned regulations. Yeah, we do have regulations. And it has started a long time ago when the Surgeon General put on a pack of cigarettes that this will be harmful to your health. We need regulations. We need those safeguards. I don't believe this is going to hurt any businesses across the state of Colorado. Just like putting on that Surgeon General label did not prevent people from getting access to cigarettes. People still smoke. People will still have access to all kinds of nicotine products. This bill will not harm any businesses. But basically, what this bill will do will send a very strong message that we want to protect our kids from getting access and using nicotine products at a very early age. That's what this bill will do. We're trying to curb the trend to avoid kids from ever thinking about smoking. So in the interest of kids' health across the state of Colorado, I urge you to vote yes on House Bill 1033.
Is there Senator Court?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I've had 3 family members die of lung disease related to tobacco. Tobacco kills. We all know it. It is a horrible addiction, and we need to do everything we can to keep young people from getting addicted to this horrible nicotine drug. I urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1033? Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to ask the sponsors if they can point to anything within current law that prohibits a local authority from regulating vaping. If there's anything within current state law that says you cannot do that yourself. And if not, then why are we forcing this upon others?
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1033? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1033. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. House Bill 1033 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of the House Bill 1034.
House Bill 1034 by Representative Sullivan and S. Senator Danielson concerning a requirement that a common carrier engaged in the transportation of property by railroad have at least 2 crew members aboard a freight train while the freight train is moving.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1034.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Amendment L006?
Amendment L006, House Bill 1034 by Senator Danielson. Amendment read Bill, page 3, strike lines 6 through
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L006 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there discussion on Amendment L006? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Amendment L006. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Amendment L006 is adopted. There is another amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Amendment L003?
Amendment L003, House Bill 1034, Senator Crowder. Amend Regro's bill, page 3, line 13 and strike, and page 3, line 16 strike hour and substitute hour in F trains operated by a Class 2 carrier, as that term is defined in 49 CFR 1201.1-1 pursuant to the Federal Surface Transportation Board's authority under 49 U.S.C. Section.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L003. And the reason this bill came about, I have some very small railroads in my district. I have the San Luis Valley Central, which is 12 miles long. I have another one in Springfield, which is just a few miles long. And in talking to the lobbyist on this, he indicated that there would be no change on those small railroads. And what this does is actually remove the Category 3 railroads from this bill. I think if we don't, there could very well become a situation where the information I received was inaccurate from that lobbyist. Because I do believe that I've heard from the smaller railroads that this would affect them. So I think what this does is protects those real small railroads that do not have the ability or the capability to add another person in the cab. Normally, what our small railroads already have two. They have the engineers as well as a brakeman. So I think this just makes common sense for our small rural railroads not to put this additional cost on them for the amount of line that they have. I would ask for and I do believe this to be a friendly amendment. I don't believe it to be unfriendly at all because of what the way it was projected to me, that there would be no change for these smaller railroads. Thank you.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to come up and support Amendment L003. There are issues out in, not only in rural Colorado, where what we have is a short line railroads. These are short railroads. They're not like your Burlington Northerns. They're not like your Santa Fe's. They're not like those large railroads that I'm assuming we're trying to address here. Short line railroads do short line commutes. I can tell you that this bill will put some short line railroads out of business. We need those short line railroads. This will put short line, or at least I have heard from several that have said this will put them out of business because they cannot afford on a short line railroad to have this. I don't believe that this was the intent of the sponsor. I believe the intent of the sponsor was to deal with the trains that are large and moving from state to state, and I would ask for not only your support, but her support in exempting these short line railroads. Ask for a yes vote on L003.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L003? Senator Crowder.
Just one point, sir. There are three classes of railroad, but there's only two railroads in the state that are Class 1, and that's the interstate railroad. The rest of them are, like the previous speaker said, they are short line. And again, I do think this is a friendly amendment. Vote yes on it.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L003? Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Trains that move under 30 miles an hour are already exempt from the bill. Most short line trains move at that speed. Also, I hadn't seen the amendment prior to now to know what other impacts it might have. I strongly urge a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
And colleagues, apologies, Amendment L003 was the incorrect amendment. The correct amendment is L008. The same language exists in both amendments. Is there further discussion on Amendment L008? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L008. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Amendment L008 is lost. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1034? Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1034 is a very simple public safety measure. When it comes to the trains that move through our communities, we want to ensure the basic safety of the communities that they're moving through. Most trains used to be operated at a minimum 5-person crew, and as the years have gone by, that's been dwindled down to 2. This is what we need in order to ensure the basic safety measures through the communities that these locomotives move through. Some of these trains, keep in mind, are almost 3 miles long. When something goes wrong on the tracks, when obstructions occur, if there's a wreck, they may be blocking several different crossings at the same time. So one person cannot manage the interaction with first responders, the fire departments, and other folks on the ground that are dealing with hazardous material, possible injuries. You have to have one person in the train and one person that can go outside and figure out what's going on. So that's why you heard from first responders, including firefighters, in favor of House Bill 1034, that they need this measure to ensure that they can come over, break the train, communicate with the train operators, and save lives. These locomotives are oftentimes carrying hazardous materials, and that has a homeland security impact. We need to make sure that they will always be operated with a minimum 2-person crew. 4 sets of eyes ensure that whether someone is suffering from fatigue because they've been on the job too long or they just happen to make a mistake, they won't miss things like signal spotting, the speed of the locomotive, vehicles approaching, pedestrians, other obstructions, dealing with first responders' accidents, or derailments. Some folks say that this should be left up to the collective bargaining process, but I say no. The communities that we represent deserve a safety standard that ensures that this will never go below 2 people always operating the trains that move through these communities. And that is why I'm bringing House Bill 1034, a public safety measure when it comes to the trains that move through our state, carrying our critical goods, and the communities that they're moving through. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I understand the safety issues. But to say this person is on the train, I'm not sure is actually true, because I believe in many cases they are in an automobile driving along beside the train. So I think I would certainly like to have some verification and validation that that person will actually be on the train rather than in a vehicle on a road beside the train.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, what we have is a National Safety Railroad Act that actually looks at the safety of these railroads. And, you know, if the neighboring states do not have this, how are we going to work that when these Class 1 railroads hit the state line? You know, this is a situation that has not proved itself to be of a worthy project to pursue. And it's far less worthy on these very small railroads. So I would just ask for your no vote on this bill, because I don't think that this is what we need to pursue when you have this National Railroad Safety Board.
Is there further discussion? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think the bill sponsor mentioned collective bargaining a minute ago, so it made me think to ask this question. Can either party, meaning the company management or labor, unilaterally decide to end the current practice of crew quantities?
Is there further discussion? Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues, for your discussion this morning. I'd just like to reiterate my motion and illustrate the need for a basic safety measure when it comes to trains moving through our communities, that we cannot risk it ever going below 2 people operating these powerful locomotives through our communities on a daily basis. This is a public safety measure. When polled, 77% of Coloradans said that they were in support of this measure and that they want us to put in place and ensure that we will never, ever compromise on this basic safety standard and go below 2 people operating these trains through our communities on a daily basis. I urge your aye vote on House Bill 1034.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I suppose since my, thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologize. I suppose since my question wasn't answered, that maybe neither party can unilaterally end the current practice. And so that makes me wonder, is there really an imminent safety threat if neither party can end the current practice unilaterally? Hence, I'm still curious about the legislation. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1034? Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess if the sponsor isn't going to answer that question, let me go on to a different subject. We had talked earlier about short line railroads being exempt from this bill if they travel under 30 miles per hour, but under Section C it says, and are attached only to a caboose. Do we have cabooses anymore? So essentially you're including everybody. There's no exemption for short line railroads. There's no exemption for the 12 small businesses in rural Colorado that utilize short line railroads. Members, if we're not going to be reasonable about this and address the concerns that you're asking for, that the sponsor talked about the large trains that are 3 miles long and going to have a one-size-fits-all, then what are we doing? Now I have to ask for a no on the bill. Ask for your no on this bill.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues. I guess I just want to highlight one really simple, straightforward point, is that the communities that we've been sent here to represent don't have the opportunity to sit at the negotiating table with the railroad or the labor unions that run them. And it is my basic responsibility to come into this building and look out for the folks that I represent to say, at their demand, we're going to put into statute that under no circumstances can these trains go under a 2-person crew when operating these locomotives. So for me, I'm just going to go back to my core purpose of the bill, which is about public safety in our communities, and that is what I've brought the bill forward to do, and that is what my constituents demand of me. Thank you for your aye vote on House Bill 1034.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's my responsibility to not only represent my district, but all of rural Colorado and these 12 businesses in rural Colorado as well that you're going to put a hammer on. The war on rural Colorado has to come to a stop. Ask for a no.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1034? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1034. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. House Bill 1034 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, committee will begin the reports out of consideration of the following text bills being second reading. There makes following recommendation on House Bill 1033 as amended, House Bill 1034 as amended, passing every order revised place calendar for the reading and final passage. Senate Bill 90 laid over until 2/25/19, retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? Mr. Carpenter, there is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Carpenter, please read committee of the whole amendment.
Committee of the whole amendment 001 is House Bill 1034 by Senators Crowder and Sonnenberg. Move to amend the report of the committee of the whole to show that the following Crowder floor amendment L008 to House Bill 1034 did pass. Amend Rio Gross Bill page 3 line 13 strike and page 3 line 16 strike hour and substitute hour and F trains operated by a class 2 carrier.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Amendment 1 to the Committee of the Whole. Mr. President, members, this is the amendment that exempts short-line railroads, those 12 small businesses in rural Colorado. If you look, I'm going to reemphasize in Section C, it says the exemption for a locomotive or group of locomotives that are traveling no more than 30 miles per hour outside of a rail yard. I'm going to address that first. 30 miles an hour, short lines absolutely do go sometimes over 30 miles an hour, sometimes under 30 miles an hour. But then it says and are attached only to a caboose. Members, I don't know that we have cabooses anymore on trains. I can assure you it's not a requirement for trains to have cabooses, and most short lines don't utilize cabooses. Members, I understand what you're trying to address, and I understand who we're trying to make safer. But are we willing, do we want to sacrifice these small local railroads that this isn't an issue with, that we have never had an issue with? Do we want to include them in this? And I understand we have unions that want to make sure that their people are protected as well, and I agree with that. If that's what the union wants to do, and if that's what you need to do, great. Most of these short lines are getting sucked in. They're not union guys. These are mom and pop folks. I ask for your support of this amendment to exempt the short line railroads, which would still allow you to do what you need to do with regard to your larger railroads. Ask for a yes vote.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I ask for an aye vote on Cal Amendment 1. This does not jeopardize the bill. As the good senator from Sterling and also the senator from Alamosa have pointed out, this would exempt 12 businesses, small, short line railroads in Colorado. If this amendment does not pass, it would seem to require them to purchase a or more than one caboose that they may not have. It would require them to not travel on their short line routes over 30 miles an hour. Why? Why? This is a simple amendment that does not jeopardize the bill. With this amendment, I think the intention of the bill is maintained. But without this amendment, it is an overstep. It is going too far. It is unnecessary. This does not jeopardize the bill. This does not represent some loss of face. This is the right thing to do. Please vote yes on Cow Amendment 1.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I think if you look at what these short lines haul, it might help a little bit. You know, the ones in San Luis Valley are basically potatoes and food and or grain products. And the reality is, if this is to pass like it is, what we're talking about is the potential of our food source going up in cost to the consumer. Once again, we come to a body that actually not only does it infringe itself on businesses, but we are a culprit in the way of increasing food prices for the people of the nation as well as the state. So I think that this is a very, and I've maintained this from the start, that this is a very friendly bill. And I think that the previous speaker pointed out very eloquently that you can have exactly what you want, and rural Colorado can actually save money to the consumer. So I think that this is a good cow. And I would ask you for your support on this, because to vote against this cow actually means that you are actually in favor of higher food prices for the people of the state of Colorado. So if we are indeed a body that represents the people of the state and not just an entity or a union or whatever, then we need to look at this. We're supposed to be here for the body of the whole, and that means the entire state of Colorado. Thank you.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to clarify that, again, in the understanding that I have had going through this process and the weeks of work we've put into it, they are already exempt. And I urge a no vote on this cow amendment. And then to clarify another point that was just brought up, actually, the folks that I've been working with do operate San Luis, Rio Grande, Colorado, Wyoming, Great Western, and the Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado Railroad. So we're in touch with all of the folks who interact with these short lines. This is in no way an attack on rural Colorado. We also exempt passenger lines and tourist lines in the same section of the bill. This is an effort to make sure that these businesses can continue to conduct business, and since we've been involved in the drafting of the bill from the beginning, this is what we believe we've accommodated with the existing language and what we debated on seconds. I urge a no vote on this cow amendment.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we just heard that this amendment is unnecessary because these 12 railroads are allegedly, apparently, already exempt. I disagree, but let's say that that is true. If that is true, then Cow Amendment 1 does nothing. And some of you apparently are going to vote no on something that does nothing. I'm here to say that it does matter, that this clarifies that those 12 businesses won't be put out of business because they won't have to go buy an unnecessary piece of equipment or hire someone in order to go more than 30 miles an hour. Please vote yes on Cow Amendment 1.
The question before the body is the adoption of Amendment 001 to 1034 to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? Senators Danielson, Majority Leader, Fields, Gonzalez, Janal, Bridges, Williams, Court, Donovan, Winter, Story, Danielson, Lee, Rodriguez, Moreno, Pedersen, Zenzinger, Todd, Foote. Please add the President. With 15 ayes, 19 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the committee amendment 001 is lost. The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. House Bill 1033 is amended. House Bill 1034 is amended, passed on second reading, in order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 090 laid over until 2/25/2019, retaining its place on the calendar. Consideration of House amendments. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until Monday, February 25th, 2019.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the balanced calendar will be laid over. Committee reports.
February 21st, 2019, Committee on Health and Human Services, Ethics, Committee on Committee as following. Senate Bill 133, be amended as follows as submitted, be referred to Committee on Finance with a favorable recommendation. February 21st, 2019, Committee on Health and Human Services, Ethics, Committee as following. House Bill 1044, be amended as follows as submitted, be referred to Committee on Whole, favorable recommendation.
Delivery to the Governor.
To the Governor for signature on Thursday, February 21st, 2019, 4:30 p.m. Senate Bill 112, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, and 126.
Announcements. Senate Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. Looking ahead, Senate Finance Committee, we're going to change the order on Tuesday afternoon. We will hear Senator Tate's 140 first, and then we'll hear the rest of that calendar. Thank you.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Wanted to make everyone aware that there's going to be a joint judiciary committee talking about prison expansion, prison reform, criminal justice reform today upon adjournment in room 271. There's some pretty big bills coming down the pike. It's a pretty big part of our budget that we're spending on criminal justice, and this is an opportunity to become enlightened, informed, and knowledgeable about what goes into our criminal justice budget. So please join us.
Seeing no further announcements, Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate recess until 11 a.m. today.
Motion before the body. You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The Senate will be in recess until 1100 today.